You've just brought the numbers up to date, which I didn't see any huge changes in numbers there at all.
Nope.
So that we don't need to look that over at all.
Yeah.
But first, I'd like to congratulate you on finally changing the picture. I thought we only had that one of the guy in the garden.
That's what I was
like
saying
Russell?
I thought we only had.
I said I love Russell, but
Russell's very photogenic.
Send someone else under the camera and take another
Love
picture
Russell, but-
of someone does standing there.
I
Someone
can't-
actually working.
I appreciate it, but I can't even take credit for it. It was all Alicia. So she,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
She must have been tired of the other picture too.
Yeah, okay. I know.
So mostly, Wes is gonna kind of take you on a little bit ride where we've been and where we're at and focus mostly on the changes. Like you say, Director Martin, a lot of the stuff you've seen already.
Yeah, we don't need to go through everything in here. But as I went through it, I had popped a few questions, so as you go through it.
And do we need to do anything with to note Director Snell's absence? Or?
No, because this is just a committee
Okay.
meeting. It'll be noted in the minutes.
Okay. All right.
I
Ready?
apologize for the delay. I'm apparently not responding.
Oh, your computer's not responding?
Do you need the?
Oh, we need a new system.
It's
Yeah, we got plenty. What do we need? What do you
saving to the public.
Just
that
put it in the
right now.
budget.
It's frozen. I've been having issues today, Justin.
Oh.
Oh, Mike, apparently I need to take an Excel graphing class. Maybe you can help me out with that too later. Okay, I think it's safe. So we can go to, can I borrow the mouse?
Sure, you can have it.
I just need the mouse. I don't think I need the keyboard. I tried the graphing scene thing and it just wasn't letting me do it. So
Which Encina thing?
we tried, we want to do the VWD and the Encina
Oh, yeah.
on top.
All right.
So I just put it on there, the amount, and I'll, Mike can give me some tutoring later on. Okay. In here somewhere.
Is this room okay, by the way? We changing this room too? Is that $17 million?
We already did this room.
Oh, this room's already done. Oh. I thought we had this. What else did we, oh.
Yeah, the previous job did the training room and the conference rooms, some of the conference rooms,
No.
including this one.
Yeah, that's what the big TV is. And,
There's Russell.
oh, sorry, I said picture.
You
Yeah.
can't shake him.
I think it was actually board direction that we used this template for all of our PowerPoint
Yes,
presentations.
for
too.
consistency.
So if you want to give a new, maybe
Yeah.
That was probably the majority at that time.
can we agendize that?
Yeah, we'll put it on the policy
You
committee.
just taking pictures.
Okay. Well, welcome back. This meeting, wait, I gotta put up the budget party screen. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, budget party screen.
Back to the party.
Okay. So today I'm going to go through a lot of stuff. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. It's a lot of numbers. I'll give you a fair warning that it's going to be a lot of numbers and very boring and stuff you've already heard. So,
You can save a lot of that for the meeting.
so
Where they're going to vote.
I'll go through it quickly, and then when you have questions, just interrupt me.
Yeah.
So, first I'm going to go through the calendar, just get us up to speed on that. And then I'll talk about the budget versus projected. I know we like to do budget versus actual instead of budget versus budget, so I'll just give you kind of an update on where we are for 2018. So there's only 2 months left in the year. We got a pretty good idea where we're going to end up for this fiscal year. Then I'll go over the operating changes, and that's going to be the changes from the March 22nd meeting when we presented the operating budget to you. And as you noted, there aren't a lot of changes, but I want to make sure you know what they are. Then I'll go over the updated salaries and benefits. We had the estimates last time. Now we have a better idea of the projections, and we've got a few changes that were made to the budget, but not many. Then I'll talk briefly about the capital budget. Pretty much the same again, but I just want to give you that because it's part of the draft budget. And then I'll do a little sneak peek of the 5-year preview, and I'll note it now that that's not something that's being decided by the board, so it's not being adopted by the board this year. It's just a 5-year plan that we include as part of the budget, but I just want to give you a preview of that. And then we'll go over the next steps for the next 2 meetings that we have this year for the budget. So February, we had our first meeting on the 26th, just went over budget versus actual on the calendar. March, we went over the operating budget request. That was the preliminary, and Ed discussed a lot of the changes there, and went over the preliminary salary and benefits. Then in April, we met and went over the operating budget and the capital budget with James. And then today, we're going to go over the finalized capital budget, the draft budget, which was emailed to you, and again, gave you an up-to-date copy. Thank you, Ann. And any items you'd like to discuss, we'll talk about those afterwards.
Do we have discussed board requested items?
Do we have to?
Do we have any now?
No, that's actually if you guys,
Oh, at the board.
yeah, if you'd like to, if you have any
Oh,
requested items
committee
for
requested
us,
items.
that
Yeah.
should make it committee.
Yeah, it probably should be committee.
Okay.
Yeah, the intent is, at today's meeting, if you have anything you want us to look at.
Okay, so this is a refresher of the first meeting we had. I believe it was in February 26th. We just went over the calendar, then we talked about budget versus actual, but we didn't have the 17-18 projected numbers in there, so I threw them in this one just to give you an idea where we are now and are projecting to the end of this fiscal year. So as you can see, for water, we're actually under budget currently, and we're projecting to be about $627,000 under budget, or about 5.58% below budget. Most of that's a result of the labor savings that we're getting, that you'll see, I'll talk about in a little bit, the salaries and benefits.
Good job.
And then sewer, same thing. We're looking at, we're gonna come in about $1 million under budget, 14.87%, and most of it again is related to salary savings.
But that's compared to previous years where you always came in under budget.
Yeah, so we're
And the same with the last year.
about 3% under our under budget. If you were to take the 14 minus the 11, which isn't a direct percentage correlation, but
Right, with 3%
More.
better than last
yeah.
year. But it's always,
For sewer.
as this is, there's always an amount added in there.
Well, not
Kind
added
of
in.
like when I saw the budget for the electrical upgrades in the council chambers. You added automatically change orders, 10%. I've never seen that done. You probably do it all the time. I've just never seen that. That you automatically add that and the contractor sees it and like, I got 10%.
Just assume.
Well, it has to be justified. And that's board policy that we allocate 10% for projects of that value.
That's a board policy? I don't know.
It's an ordinance. Yeah.
Really?
It talks about for projects that you award based on the value of the construction contract, I think it's like 0 to $1 million, $1 million to 2 or 3, and then anything over that is a smaller percent. As the project gets bigger, the amount of the change order contingency amount gets a lesser
Good.
percentage.
When I came on this board, Margaret Ferguson was just beside herself with change orders. I mean, it was like, does anybody not know what they're doing? That's different. If you're digging a hole, you don't know what's in there until you start to dig,
Yeah.
you know, but,
We dig a lot of holes in our projects.
yeah, digging a lot of holes when it comes to the add-on for the locker room.
But not for sewer.
Oh, no,
operating
we own
expenses.
that land. Okay, I'm just saying, I don't understand that, and maybe at some point in time you can explain that to me better, because I think we should change that. We shouldn't automatically
Yep.
add change orders.
Well,
That
no,
seems-
we're not adding change orders, we're putting money aside in the event that there are change orders. Because otherwise you'd get stuck, if there were a change order and you didn't have authority to spend any money on it, the project would grind to a halt while you process something to get back in front of the board, and then you end up paying delay claims to the contractor because he's all mobilized and has his equipment out there. So you need some ability to react in a relatively quick time, otherwise the project's gonna cost you even more than the work that the change order was. He's gonna charge you for delay claims.
Yeah, and that makes sense if the change order is justifiable, but
And then that's why we have inspectors and construction managers to make sure that they're justified. And the contractor can't just say, I'm gonna charge you 10% more just because I know you have 10% set aside.
But do you think that gives them that mindset? I don't know, I'm just thinking as an outsider. My mind says, like when I bid in photography business, if I go out and bid a job and I knew there was 10% fluff there, if I figured out a way to get that, I could say, you know what?
Yeah.
It rained a little, so I need to charge the 10% because the bag's covering my camera equipment. I could justify it,
Yeah.
but would it be,
You have to explain it to Jason though, he's not a very nice guy.
Yeah.
no?
You know, the reality is the contractor's entitled to change orders whether there's a contingency there or not. You're just gonna end up in legal issues or in delays if you don't have the money available to do it. And that's the intent of a contingency, is to allow the contractor to move forward.
Definitely, thank you.
Okay, so
Good job, by the way, it's the best year so far. Well, 12 and 13 were pretty good too.
That was a good year.
we've had some good years. So these are the operating changes since the March 22nd operating expenses were shown to the Finance Committee. The major changes, there are minor changes here and there with a few salary things, but nothing major. So the biggest things are in water. Engineering has a groundwater study that they've added in for $75,000. Customer accounts, we're actually doing North Star utilization review to better utilize our billing system. It's all encompassing. It's going to take a few weeks, and it should be a really good thing. It's $25,000 total. So 13 is in water, and the other 11,000, 12,000 is in sewer. And so we got Encina's draft operating budget, which actually I heard was approved yesterday.
Today. Yeah.
Today. And they came in $107,000 under last year's budget. We previously had their last year amount in there, so now we plugged in the actual, and it's $107,000 lower for operating.
Right.
They actually made some adjustments to their capital too, and that came in lower than before. And then Meadowlark, we went into a little more detail with the Meadowlark operating budget, the materials and supplies that you see, and looked at some stuff there, and talked to engineering, and it was determined that we could possibly do without some engineering consultation. So we've also reduced the other amounts. So we cut $72,000 from the Meadowlark plant budget, and there's the customer account, same thing. It's the utilization.
Out of curiosity, I really don't know this at all. But I was looking at engineering, and it's separate cost, the budget. Engineering, what does it encompass in my mind, other than having engineers having to engineer something? Meadowlark is a facility that we're not changing. I know we already spent all the money on changing it. What are we engineering over there? Where's the engineering cost?
They had a project recently that they were working on. I can't remember the name of it, but they had Jason do some work with them in analyzing it. They just told me about it yesterday.
Okay.
I can get you an answer on that.
Okay, so
It's,
they have,
it's
they
the
have-
select biological select zone. They're trying to find ways to have the plant run more efficiently, and that is an engineering study to do that. That may drive out physical construction that needs to be done. So
Yeah, they just put in a PO for $20,000, not a PO, but they just used $20,000 of engineering consulting this recently. I'll let you know when I remember.
you may remember earlier this year we did that media replacement
Mhm.
project.
Yeah.
Where they had to take the media out and they recoated the walls. That was engineering involvement that did all the design. So
Okay, but I guess my question is there again, when you had the media taken out and replaced, that's a matter of, I don't know where the engineer comes, did you have to re-engineer it?
well, yeah. So they changed the type of media that was in there. So they went out and got an engineering consultant and said what media type would allow us to use lower chemicals amounts, because it doesn't. When you do the wastewater treatment, there's a physical process where it's like a sand removes some of the physical stuff, and then there's a chemical part of that too, which removes the bacteriological stuff.
Okay.
So if you do a better job on the physical straining, basically, then you can add less chemicals for the filtration. So but it's an engineering study to determine the best type of media that goes in there, and once they determine what it is, then you're just getting a contractor to go take out the old media, put in the new media.
And then who does it? Do they do it? What department does the ROI on it? Return on investment. We spend all this money on engineering, and we save $1,000 a year.
Yeah, that's part of the engineering study, and what they look at is, and for a project like that, they'll look at what kind of electricity and what kind of chemical savings will we see, and over what period of time does it pay back. That media needed to be replaced anyway. After a while, they get clogged up. We back flush them and try to clean the junk out of there, but over time, they have to be replaced anyway.
Right.
So it's just a matter of, do we want to replace it with the same stuff we put in there 20 years ago, or do we
Right.
want a different type of stuff?
Something new that lasts longer and does a better job.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so those are the major changes since the last operating budget. So here's a lot more numbers for you. This is actually on page 11, I believe, of your draft budget.
Of the handout or of the budget?
The thick one.
Okay.
Yeah, that right there. So there you go, page 11. So it's a little bit different because I've not included the revenues here just so to make it more presentable. And I also took out water purchases for this, but we'll get into that in a minute. So you can see this is actually the one that was presented at the March 22nd meeting. So just to kind of give you a review of that, the highlighted items I'd went into and explained why they were higher than last year's budget. And you can see that we were proposing a 2.52% increase over the previous year's budget. So that's budget to budget. And now this is the current page 11. And you can see the major changes that I just talked about, which are the customer accounts, the utilization review, and the engineering groundwater study. The two highlight items there show the difference between those two. So engineering's actually up 195,000, but it should have been up. It would be about it was 121, so 74,000. So there's the increase, and now it's currently 3.58% higher than the previous year's budget.
So the increase in engineering expense.
Yeah.
We're foreseeing a lot more engineering we need to do.
Well, that's for the groundwater study that they added 75,000 for.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the Hernandez
I know.
study.
I was trying to stay away from that.
Yeah.
I got a question I'm going to pass it around. Page, should I hit these two? We're on page 11. Page 5, unbilled water. And we've talked about this before. And I still don't really get the unbilled water. I guess part of my question is when we order the water from Met, that water, we order that water from Met, and Met delivers it. And it's all roughly, nothing's exact. Is that correct?
It's metered, but meters have inaccuracies.
Is some of this that inaccuracy?
Well, this is on the back end. So this is taking a difference between there's meters on both ends. There's meters of water that comes into our system,
Right.
and then there's a lot of meters that figure out how it goes out to the
Right.
customers.
Right.
So what this is looking at is basically the difference between what we paid for coming in and what we billed going out, and it's like, hey, this doesn't equal that. Unbilled water. There's things that are system losses that are in here. That's what these are.
Okay, and I would understand that system losses other than major fires if it was more of a constant. But when I look at 2015, it was 1.49%. We didn't have any losses that year.
Now, a lot of that is timing differences too. So in months where we have a major cutback, we buy water in June, but we don't sell it until July. So if there's a month where we bought a whole bunch of water in June, but we didn't sell a lot of water in June, which is for May, and then it covers over the next fiscal year. So really, if I were to go a rolling 12 months, those two, 14 and 16, where they were higher, they would have kind of smoothed it out a little bit. So a lot of it is timing difference on that, especially like I said, when you have a month that drastically changes from high usage to low usage.
So for us, basically 7% is what we're going to be looking at for water losses. It may be even more in the future with more hookups.
Potentially.
And that's through breaks.
Water we deliver to our buildings because we don't bill ourselves, cleaning, flushing,
Oh, yeah.
evaporation, breaks, fire hydrants.
Water main breaks, fire hydrant knockdowns,
All that. But some of the fire hydrant stuff we're getting back.
water theft. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one. And no, I don't. Thank you. Okay, so that change was mostly due to the Hernandez 75K.
Yep.
Okay?
It's got a name.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the operating expense section of page 11. From there, I'm going to roll it up. So if you look at the total expense number there at the bottom, it's now here in the highlighted row for the other operating expense. I rolled that all up so I can present this page for you. So this is the top part of page 11, which shows all the operating revenues. And Mike's going to go in a little bit to how we get our water sales and our water purchases that have been popular for this section.
Okay, so really quickly, I've showed this to you before. I'm going to switch out to,
You want the mouse?
yeah. So we kind of went over this before. I won't go over my 250,000 lines of data,
Yeah.
but we have a little bit. The only thing that's really changed is we've got some more definitive costs and things from the Water Authority. We are still missing their fixed charges. They're supposed to come in mid-April, so we might not even have them, depending on our next meeting. I mean, mid-May. Sorry.
Sorry, May 21st. So
Yeah, it may cut it close, but I don't anticipate that it's going to be off by more than about $50,000. And if it is that much difference, I'm probably not even going to change it, to be honest with you,
Oh.
because over a $40 million amount, 50,000 is going to make that much, and I don't want to reprint pages. So if it's bigger than that, we'll think about it. But if it's a little bit. So just quickly, we're anticipating about a 3% demand increase from our current fiscal year to next fiscal year. These past 2 years, we've seen some great bounce back, bigger than anticipated. industry was expecting 6 to 8%. I think we got 12 and 15, 16,
Yeah,
somewhere
big
around there.
rebound.
So we've got some big rebounds. We're not expecting that to keep going.
Would you attribute that, out of curiosity, would you attribute that to people finding out through the media and everything else that they had been lied to, and we had plenty of water the entire time? Would you, I mean, is that, you think
I
that's
think a
an
lot of it,
attributing
you know,
factor?
we made a declaration that the drought was over. So there was,
Right.
and we stopped the messaging. We weren't putting something in their monthly flyers and on the
Right.
website that says conserve, conserve, conserve. They stopped hearing the message. They're going back to their normal habits.
Right.
Whether they feel that they were lied to before, I can't comment.
I
whether
mean,
they
the
felt
whole
that.
news media came out and said that.
Yeah,
We, well, and our own water authority, GM came here and said that.
yeah,
We had water the entire time.
yeah.
And I just don't know.
Well, it's that confusion between a drought and water supply availability.
Right,
Just because it's not raining doesn't mean we don't have water.
right. Yeah. That's a good way to explain it, thank you.
So I'll wait until our full board meeting to go into a sensitivity analysis. I kind of went through this last time, but we kind of weigh the odds. What are the chances we're going to have another 20% cutback? What are the chances it's going to grow 15%? And you kind of weigh the two and see where you're going to lie, and we fall somewhere hopefully in the middle. So that's where we came up with about the 3% demand increase, plus looking at kind of historically. So with
Does that 3% demand increase, does that go across the board evenly?
no,
Or
what
is that,
it kind of does, because it'd be too hard. Just to show you, I slice and dice this all different ways, just real quick. So we have the 257,000 lines of data, but then I go into and I do it by meter size, and I have it by meter size, and I look at that, and then I also have it by customer class. Even though we bill by meter size, I like to look at customer class because I like to see is, you know, residential growing faster than industrial and things like that. So I do a lot of that in my analysis to look at it. And then, you know, like construction and ag, we're kind of expecting them to be pretty similar to what they were. Some of the other ones, residential is going to go up. I have them going up probably 3.8% and everything else going up like 2.1%. So I kind of look, I have historically how much has been used in all those classes for years, and I kind of make a determination. Some of them I have to group together because it'd be too hard to say, okay, this is going to go up 3.1, this one's going to go up 2.7. So you kind of do it, you know, kind of on similarities, but there are certain things like construction or ag that I can separate from residential and kind of do them at a little bit different escalators, if you will.
and I don't know, I've only been on the board 6 years, but the last meeting or the meeting before, it was board here, where I learned, where you guys explained to me that I used to look at tier 3 people with disdain, your water hogs, where I learned just the opposite. Hug them, thank them, tell them to use more water.
Yep.
So, I mean, but that took me 6 years to understand that.
Unless
So I
it's a drought.
appreciate these conversations because it's like, wow, we like tier 3 people.
Yeah, and that's why when we had the cutbacks 20% 2-3 years ago, it really hurt us because
Right.
it cut back more than 20% of our revenue, cut back 30% of our revenue, and our
Mhm,
costs
that's
only
true,
went
yeah.
down 15%. So that's the kind of
That makes it so much easier to understand that.
yeah, and that's why when you do the projections, you kind of want to look at all that stuff and be a little bit conservative on that.
Sure.
So that's what this is all built into here. So then these numbers, the water sales and in the readiness to serve the RTS are driven off of all the customer data that we have. Is that all we want to go into right now?
And our ready to serve now is a lot better up than it was 6 or 7 years ago. Because my understanding was when we first got here that needed a major overhaul. We increased quite a few prices, very large percentages.
Yeah.
And then we just did it recently too.
Yeah.
But by smaller increments.
And the one that we did last year, I just want to let you know this, is it actually went down in total just a little bit because what we did is we adjusted the multifamily. We were charging multifamily at $18 for each additional unit, and it went down to 11. So it was a
Oh,
big
wow.
decrease because there wasn't as much. Most of that is, you know, customer service time, meter charges, and things like that. Well, you have one meter serving a 40, 50
Right.
apartment complex. It doesn't really cost incrementally
Right.
for those other 39 units or however many it be. So we redid it in the
It's like
analysis.
servicing a mobile home park.
Right.
You
It
have
doesn't.
one customer.
Right. Right. It does cost a little bit more incrementally, but not as much as it was. So overall, I think our revenues went from like 13.7 to 13.5 or something like that. So it wasn't major,
Yeah.
but just wanted to let you know that it did go down just a little bit.
Okay, so on here we had the water sales
yeah, the
of
water sales.
31.8. and water purchases of 32.7.
Yeah, we round.
Yeah.
Okay, you wanna go back to?
So that's where those numbers come from.
Is that good? Thanks. That's sorry.
Okay. So this is the March 22nd sewer operating budget. It would be on page, page 11, it's page 21 of your large packet here, your draft budget. But this is the one that was presented at the March 22nd meeting. So here we were showing an overall increased budget to budget of $25,000 total for sewer. The current budget, since we mentioned the changes from Encina of 107,000, the 72,000 reduction in the Metal Arc budget, and the $11,000 increase for the utilization review, now we're actually showing a decrease from budget to budget year of $140,000, or a little bit over a percent decrease.
Wow.
So, so yeah, we cut like 165,000 total. And then,
Before you move forward, I got a question going backwards.
sure.
On page 11, sewer flow, you have a chart, sewer flow in MGD.
Is it 11 or is it?
Page 17, I'm sorry, 17.
That's it for the sewer. Your green charts that you just, you change the colors. You like the new colors on there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're softer.
That's fine.
And trying to do, we have our standard green is for sewer, blue is for water, so I'm trying to change all that as we go forward.
That confused staff a lot. Again, I see that we stay about the same except for 2016.
Is that
What do we do?
corresponding with the drought? Or,
That's only 1 year.
Yeah, we'll have to check those numbers, because I don't remember a
Based on average flow.
big decrease like that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why it would drop so much. And what do I understand the water because you could over purchase, but sewer is sewer.
it's an average flow each April. Yeah, I have to find out, maybe it's just an April thing, I have to look that up.
Okay,
Make a note of it.
no problem, thanks.
So, in following with the water budget as well, this is the sewer portion. So if you look at the last line there, the total expenses, that's going to roll into the next slide. And this is still on page 21, but the total expenses are just rolled up. So now we can get a look at the operating revenues. And again, Mike will go in a little bit to how we calculate our sewer service charges.
Well, basically, when we did the Prop 218 last year, we didn't change the sewer service charges. So really, it's only based on a little bit of growth. So I think we use 0.3%, 0.5% or something like that for the growth. So for the next, we only have the 1 year here. So you'll see that it's roughly the same. It went from 17.9 that we're projecting for this year to just 17.954 because the rates are going to stay the same on the sewer side.
Okay, the rate stayed the same for a couple of years and then it went up last year. Slightly.
Sewer,
It stayed,
I don't think sewer has
it
gone
was
up.
2 years of flat, so
Right.
last year, this year and the next year, no increases, and then I think we showed 3%, 3% after that.
In future years.
The board hasn't approved those, but those are projected
Right.
increases.
But the past 4 years it was flat. There was 2 years it was flat and 2 years it was flat with 1 year in between.
I'm trying to remember what it was leading into this.
I don't think there's been a rate increase.
I don't think there's been a rate increase for about 4 years in the sewer
Okay,
side.
and that was it.
4
was
straight
flat.
years, I think. When you consider next year also, I think it's 2 prior, current year, and next year.
So what changes it from flat, 3%, 3%?
That's our 5-year plan, and
But,
we're
but,
not going to get into
but
it.
no, I understand, but is there more construction going on? Or where's the cost going up where it's, after, we didn't go 1%, 1%, 2%, we went nothing, 3.
It's going to be looking at all the factors, including operating expenses, inflation that we predicted there, or projected there, salary increases, cost of construction. All those factors go into that in the 5-year plan. But again, they're forecasts, so nothing.
Sure, no, I understand, but we would be looking at 3% for the, well, that's a forecast as well, because that's not happening
Well, I
yet.
will say, that some of the 0% on the wastewater side was a bit artificial. We were trying to keep the combination of water and wastewater rate increases to a certain amount, and we knew the water had to go up, so we tried to keep the wastewater down. Well, you can only keep it down for so long,
Right.
so that's why we projected 0.0 to help out with the combined rate, and then we realized, okay, we have to bump it up. So we could have gone like 1%, 2%. We could have probably smoothed it, but then that would have driven up the overall one in this year and the next year.
And then reclaimed sales are calculated as a recovery from Carlsbad and Levenhain based on the contractual amounts and the flows that we predict to them for the year. So they'll be going up for actually they're going down a little bit for 18-19.
So what we've done in prior years, as well as with water, is whatever we come in under budget, we transfer it
To reserves.
to replacement reserves.
Correct.
Is there a number we already have for that that we're already in our minds know we need for reserves,
Yep.
but we're putting everything in there anyhow? So is there some overflow, I guess is what I'm asking.
If there were well, I wouldn't say there's overflowing. It would be between the floor and the ceiling, and based
Right.
on our target levels, we look at those two.
Okay.
So we haven't gone over our ceiling, so there's no real overflowing. We
That's
may-
an artificial ceiling that staff, the board put in place.
Well, it's based on the reserve policy.
It's
So-
based on,
The reserve policy. The reserve
Right.
policy sets the floor and the ceiling, and I'll talk a little bit more about where we're at in that projection at the end of it.
do you find our reserve policies comparable to other water district reserve
Yes.
policies?
I've actually recently got about 20 of them, read through 3 and read all of our reserve policies, and it's pretty consistent with other agencies and cities.
I just don't wanna get caught in that, we're not gonna have any water thing that we got caught in where we were sort of tuned with other agencies
Yeah.
for whatever reason. It's like, so we're pretty much in tune, and that's good.
Yeah, I think we're in tune, and I think we probably need to take a look at it too. I think it'd be something worthwhile for the board to take a look at the reserve policies. We can explain how we're alike and how we're different than others, and any refinements we may want to get. I don't know if Wes is going to touch on it, but our policy doesn't really say what our target should be. It says here's the low, here's the high. What should you be aiming for? As long as you're between the goalposts, is
middle?
that good, or
Yeah.
should it be the middle?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, I recently contacted Fitch Rating Agency as well and talked to them a little bit about it, so I got more information about how we're setting our targets, and I'll talk about it. At the end, I'm gonna go through it could take a long time, and we actually are considering having a separate finance committee meeting to talk about debt service payments and reserve levels as well.
Oh, I think it's a good idea.
'Cause,
Yeah, I
'cause
think
it-
we don't want to get it too mixed up with this.
Right.
This presentation is about the 18-19 budget. And
Right.
what Wes is talking about is more of a 5-year where we head in
Right,
kind of conversation.
right, futuristic.
It was actually a lot of fun, so we could have a meeting on that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is we finished that up, so let's go into the next, which I believe is salaries and benefits. Yes, okay, so this is the updated version of the salaries and benefits.
Okay.
This on page 25 of your budget.
Okay.
So you may recall that in the, I think it was the 22nd meeting as well, we talked about the projected versus budget for 17-18 and how we're projecting that we're going to be realizing some savings as a result of having 4 retirements, 4 vacated positions, 2 people that were on leave without pay, and 2 that were on reduced schedules. The accumulation of that savings, or that just budget versus actual, it was around 1.45 million, something like that. But we've got more accurate projections now. Part of it is the group insurance is a little bit closer to the budgeted amount. And now we're looking at a $1.3 million projected savings for 17-18.
And where's that number?
So if you look at the screen, I got circles up there. So first, you got total salaries here. I don't think you have a budget versus actual in there, so I added
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah,
added
you
it
won't
to
find it
slide.
in the big budget
Oh, okay,
package.
okay.
So for presentation purposes, I added the 3 columns to the right, so you can see what was going on, projected versus budget, projection versus actual, and then budget versus budget. So the total salaries, we're gonna see savings of $741,000, but when you add benefits to that, you get the $1.3 million in salaries and benefit savings for 17-18.
And the benefits went up, now, which benefits went up? Health?
Well, it was just our projection of the benefits. So we were looking at the group insurance, which includes medical, dental, LTD, and ADD. I said dismemberment, disability, whatever that is.
Accidental death and dismemberment.
That's the one. So we want to be covered for that one. Sounds dangerous. So that one actually, we had it projected at 2.2, and it's actually going to come in closer to 2.4. Now that we're within 2 months of the end of the year, we can get a better projection. It was just divided by 12 times whatever months it was, so now we have a better idea. So that went up about 200,000. So now we're going to see savings of 1.3 million versus the 1.5.
Fantastic.
So
Great
then
savings.
savings.
Great job, staff. You.
So people keep retiring.
Yeah.
So going on. So now looking at budget versus budget for 18-19 versus 17-18, we're actually budgeting an increase of $30,000 and a total salaries and benefits decrease of $25,000.
So you're increasing because of contractual.
Well, the increases can be due to steps, COLA, anything like that that's built
So
into the
COLA,
budget.
2%.
And overall, we're actually almost seeing a savings because that amount's going to be higher than the 30,000 just in itself.
Right. Wow.
So even with the new hirings that we have coming in, some are coming in at lower amounts. So overall, it's actually helping us out.
Great job. Great job.
So that's salaries and benefits. Next, we'll go on to the capital budget. So we saw this in the last meeting that we had, and James
Let's do
actually.
this.
Yeah, and James, there's a lot of numbers too.
Yeah.
So James, this is the carryover project. So these are the existing projects that are being worked on now. So you can see you have the previous budget amounts, the amounts that have been spent to date, and then the amount that's going to be carried forward for the future budget. And then you have new requests, so that changes to projects. And James actually talked about the parallel outfall, the big change there, and the $3.2 million in the City of San Marcos joint projects.
What project is that again?
The joint projects, the projects we work on with the City of San Marcos.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with the Creek District project where they're building those bridges, and we have lines in there, but they have prior rights, so when they do their bridge, we have to relocate our line at our cost.
Now, hopefully it wouldn't be the sewer line we just put in.
No, it's not that one on Craven, it's the one that actually crosses the bridge, that crosses the creek.
No,
It's-
that's one we just did
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Mm.
The main, because we had to what do you call it when we leave one? We leave the
Abandoned.
old one in place. We
Abandoned
abandoned one
place.
and we put that big one in. They had to do that huge cut that went up to the AM/PM, then it goes across the street. That was a huge sewer main. It's all the sewer coming from the other side of 78.
I think if it's the projects I'm thinking of, this is along Bent and the bridge on Bent and the bridge on, is it Via Veracruz?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm
Yeah.
I'm hoping we don't have any changes from what we just did 3 or 4 years ago.
I don't
So-
believe so.
These projects are actually detailed on page 42 of your budget. They're broken out by the projects that are being worked on. So there's a San Marcos Boulevard rehabilitation for $85,000. There's a Discovery Street widening for $647,000. There's the Bent Avenue Bridge for $912,000. Then we have the Via Veracruz Bridge for $2 million, which is the majority of it. And then miscellaneous relocations and adjustments for $70,000. So the total is 3.7.
So my question on that one will be to, I guess, Mr. Capello.
We can get him on. We can get James on the phone. Actually, this is actually more of a Rob Scholl thing, if you want to.
Oh, we can do it at the meeting. I'm just, we put in, that was a very, very large project that we just put in. And it's like, if we're redoing part of that project now, why would be the question?
So I will give them the heads up that you'll be asking them that question.
Yeah, if they'll have some excuses.
They have a good reason.
That's what I want to hear is a reason, because that was very long. I mean, it was,
They'll have an excellent explanation for you.
that was when they actually went under 78 and they did all that. You know, they went through 78 and came out and they went all the way down there.
See, I'm actually not a San Marcos resident. I'm going to be a new San Marcos resident here next week.
Oh,
But
right.
not yet. So
It's moving out of Little Italy, coming up to San
Well,
Marcos.
You live down in San Diego?
Yeah.
it's a commute.
How long have you been here?
6 years. So
How many cars have you gone through?
I know, right? 2, I think.
Wow.
I think I started with a Grand Cherokee.
I'm good to move here. What area?
San Leandro Hills, right over off of.
You're in my district.
Oh no.
I don't want to mention that.
Yeah, this weekend I'm moving actually.
I know where San Diego would be.
Yeah.
Just kidding, just kidding. It's a joke.
Okay, so I'll give them the heads up. So we'll be ready with they'll be ready with the explanation on that one.
Okay. Yeah, because that was a very massive thing. if they have backup information, if they're gonna explain to me, yes, part of it to that, then they have backup information on why they didn't know that. Because it's like Creek District, we talked about for 20 years, and the bridges we've been talking about for 20 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next circle, the red circle down bottom shows the total carry forward projects. And the new requests, the total carry forward is actually 77.2 million, and the new requests for existing projects are 17.2 million. The next page, this shows the bottom half, and I actually didn't tell you, this is on page 34 and 35 of your budget. So that's the first one. And what I did was, I took the top section for the existing projects up here, and that's one side. So now we're looking at the bottom section where it says new projects. So these are the new project requests for this fiscal year. And there are 12 requests, I believe, for $3 million. The total new request is 49.5, but if you take out EWA and the future projects, it's only $3 million in new requests. Last year, I believe we had, let me check my notes on this. Last year, we had 25 projects for $5.5 million, so we've got a reduction in the number of projects that are being requested.
Okay, so thank you for explaining that. EWA and future projects being the parallel sewer, those kind of things.
The stuff that's not being worked on this fiscal year, but will be worked on in outer years. It's actually in your budget. There's a page that shows all the projects, and I actually have, individual pages aren't included in here, but we do have them.
Well, and Hal, I don't think it includes the parallel outfall. I think this is the Encina projects
Wow.
at the plant itself, right?
The future projects, what do you mean?
Right.
So that
The top
Thank
part,
you.
the
the
23.3,
top line.
that's just the Encina project.
Right.
Those are, that's
The
their
bottom
five-year
line,
budget. The bottom line, so those are projects that'll be started after 1819, and will be worked on from 2021 all the way out to thereafter. They're just projects we're including in the budget so that we're doing prudent financial planning. And actually on page 88 of your budget, it shows all those projects that we're including in here.
Okay.
And it shows a 5-year spending plan for them.
So were all the projects on this list now in the same list last year?
The future ones were, yes, they have not changed.
Okay.
Yeah. They just moved a year up.
If we could go back to page 32, we get kind of minutia, but I'd rather ask you the cost of some of the public awareness and conservation program. Outreach and advertising, the majority of that is probably between the pipes, because we send it out 3 times a year. Is it 3 times a year or 4 times?
4, I think.
Is it
Yeah,
quarterly?
I think it's quarterly, yeah.
Waterwise landscape. I don't know.
That's for demonstration gardens and stuff.
No, I really don't have any questions. I just looked at it.
Okay.
The video production, I think I went over with Chris last time. I hope we get more use out of that. Because this says that we hire an outside production company. I thought we were doing it in-house.
Yeah, I don't know what any,
Oh.
I've never seen us use an outside production company. I think Alicia does most of it.
For the boardroom, I believe we pay some, I forgot the Jeff, what's the video, Caldwell or something? For the invoices for the video
Oh,
production?
For putting it on,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah, their invoice, I don't think it's a lot of money, but there's.
Oh, for putting it on the TV
Yeah.
station?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought that was free for some reason.
Should be free, right? I mean,
Well, I thought that we negotiated that with the city,
I'm not sure.
because the city owns that station.
Yeah,
Alabama
no.
runs it, but the city owns it.
Yeah, it's actually just creating the videos, I believe, that we're being charged for, and I don't think it's a lot of money, but
So we create a video, so we already have a third party involved in it?
I believe so. I'll have to look at that and let you know for sure later. But I've seen video production services on invoices.
Sounds good, thank you.
Yeah.
Guys, stop asking those questions. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then going into the new projects again, we have just 12 for 3 million, and the total carry forward is the same as 77.2. With the new project request, we have a new request of 66.8 million, and the total CIP budget for the fiscal year and for the 5-year plan is $144 million. And last year, it was $121 million. And the difference is attributable to the outfall again and the joint projects, which makes up 16 million. Of
The
that
outfall is a
difference.
huge number. And we're looking at spending that this year,
Actually, the outfall starts
18,
in
19,
1920.
1920.
Yeah. So if you look on page 34, you can see there's a flag, which is on page 35. It's the first project, so they're spending money on it in 1819, but mostly that's design probably, and then they really get into it in 1920 and 2021. There's $6 million in 2021, which is
And that design that we pay for, is that we're paying ourselves or is that we're paying some outside company?
That's probably outside consultant on that one, I would imagine.
Okay.
so yeah, it's like 320 is planning, 100,000 is design. That's on page 36 if you want to look at the project detail as well.
Oh. Okay, so, I'm sorry, we have 23 million there.
Well, it's actually on this page, so it's at the top. So the
For
project
18,
totals,
19.
project totals $44.7 million.
Yeah, how much are we spending in 18, 19?
We are going to be spending, actually, it's not on this, it's on your previous page.
270,000.
270,000. Oh, and you can see that here, by the way. 18, 19,
Right, I'm looking at 270,
Yeah.
but I look up there,
Because I don't have the 5-year plan out. This is just for 18, 19, because it was just too much numbers to put on the slides.
okay, but for 18, 19, it's showing 13 million.
That's a request.
That's just a new request for this year. So the previous budget was 31 million. They need 44 million, so they had to add 13.7 to the project total.
But it's not all being planned to be spent in 1819.
Right.
Gotcha.
It's being requested in the 1819 budget
Okay,
for the life of the
Project
project.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, that nomenclature is,
That's
some
a little
people think, oh,
confusing.
those are all in that 1 year.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah, the only thing we spent in 18, 19 is this one column here.
270.
Yeah, and there's a column on page 35, the first column. So we're going to be spending $17 million total in 18, 19, according to our budget.
So the majority of that project, the 32 million, is 22, 23, and thereafter.
Correct.
So it's a long way down the road yet. But we're paying 5 million, 5 or 6 million. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so next, this is finally get a graph. This is
There we
right
go.
here. This is a little-
Colors.
a little more exciting for you, spice it up. So this just shows the CIP costs, and I was supposed to edit this and show the Encina portion.
What page is that? 19?
Actually, this isn't in the budget, this
Oh,
is just created for the presentation.
Okay.
So this just shows the water and sewer CIP costs over the next 5 years. As you can see, sewer is the majority of it, but the note down bottom tells you that about 4 to 5 million of that, say 17 million, is Encina's portion. So we're looking at like, even in 1920, we have like 12 million, and they've got, 5 million of it.
Yeah, so that green line is made up of, some of that's that we just send to EWA for their improvements, and some of it's our projects to get the flows to EWA.
Right.
So-
Water, I understand you with water, I saw a graph earlier that showed me that in the last 10 years, you've only added not that many hookups, 150 a year, 1,500 in the last 10 years. Well, that's projecting 08 and 09, whatever page that's on. So, well,
Is that in there?
that's not very much new water to have big expenses for, other than
Oh,
replacement.
that thing?
We have that on which page? Yeah.
Page
graphs,
4.
Page 4.
So early on, I'm going, well, that's not really very many
Oh, yeah.
hookups. I was looking at it in conjunction, I guess, with the engineering, and how much engineering had to be done. But I don't know what engineer does. Yeah, the meter additions, yeah. You projected 21.8, and 10 years ago you had 23, 29, so that's about 1,500 in 10 years. So the growth spurt is really over with, or it has been over with. Well, we'll continue to be seeing they're building more apartments than they are single units.
We're hoping for more development is what we're hoping for.
Yeah, there's probably gonna be more apartments. A lot of infill. Unless they get projects like Fitzgerald one approved. And the meter additions, now the meter additions are a bit, because multi-unit, there's only one meter.
Correct.
So that's a bit, that's not really housing units. But then I was trying to compare that with another chart you had in there. Units per household. Units per, if you did the
UDUs?
yeah. Yeah, that chart in there. Lord,
Page 16.
thank you, sir.
That's is that wastewater?
Yeah.
It's under wastewater, but it kind of mirrors water in this way too.
Yeah, I was trying to do a comparison. EDUs added each year, looks like we're only plus 33. Where did I get the number plus 33 from? Oh, anyhow, you answered my question about it, and that'd be so bad.
Okay, so that was just the CIP costs over the next 5 years. So the next
Okay.
portion of the presentation, again, this is gonna be just a preview of the 5-year plan. So again,
Right.
there's
We've
no,
done all
no decision being made on this, it's just a discussion.
Right.
And you'll see this in the long range plan, which you're at right there.
that. Right?
That's where it starts, so this is the,
I've seen that one. That's not
it's not new, it's the same picture, you only changed
Spike
the picture. So we start our 5-year plan there, and I just wanted to give you a preview of what that looks like and some of the factors that we consider when putting that together.
okay.
So you can see, this is by year, so it doesn't break out the water and sewer or replacement capacity, just sums it up in total reserve numbers. And you can see basically the highlighted numbers at the bottom are two of the important factors and criteria that we look at. We have to keep, per our debt covenants, we have to keep our debt service above 115%. If we don't, I guess we're in default of our debt, so it has repercussions.
Okay, now explain it one more time. I was looking earlier at the debt service, 14% of our revenues goes to debt service. What are your graphs you have
I
in
guess, well, debt service is about $5 million, so it's usually like 5
here?
point, actually.
My question was, why do we maintain that kind of debt? Unless that's
Be
true.
pretty like page two,
Yeah, it was really.
pie chart on page 2. So
Overall.
debt service is 7%
Right.
of the 18
Debt
19
service is
budget.
the purple at the top on page 2.
But there again, only as a small business person, don't understand water. Small person, you try to keep that debt to zero,
Right.
because why are you paying out all that interest?
Yep.
You could be using it, especially with sitting in a bank collecting 1.5%. I still don't understand that.
So the good
Plus, I
news
did
is,
understand yesterday, after things that you can go into those bonds that we have, but you've already done it with one of them. So I remember you refi. You can refi all of them if you have to. It's possible to do that. You just have to go in and talk to them, and most of them do it. So I'm sure you look at that, but that's how the refi happened a few years ago.
2015,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
So-
refi and saved a whole bunch of money.
Yep.
I know I've seen the city do it.
Yep.
A lot of agencies do it. But again, I look at debt as, why are we carrying debt when you're losing money every month?
We
Doesn't make
don't have
sense.
enough reserves to pay off our debt. I don't know what our total debt,
58 million.
so we have $58 million in debt. We don't have that much money to pay it off. Our debt service payment, so on that page 2, that purple slice, 5.4 million, that's just the debt payment in that 1 year. That's your mortgage payment in that 1 year.
Right,
That allowed us to build all the projects that we had to provide the services.
right, okay, so that's the debt service for the year.
And we have one debt that's fixed at 1.98%. We have another one that's variable, and right now it's at 2.4. Our major debt is somewhere around 5%. So our weighted average cost of capital, which is our overall debt cost, is about 4.66%. So we're not at a really high debt cost.
Our overall debt is 50 million. So that's things like building the tanks,
Yeah.
was huge.
I think it was a lot of it was metal arc, right?
metal.
Yeah, Metal Arc was a big one.
And my-
Encina, I think the phase
Phase
5
5
upgrade
is a
at
big one,
Encina,
yeah.
we borrowed money for our share of that.
So you're never gonna pay that down.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
will, in 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't know what the term of the debt was, or 20 or 30-year.
Yeah, I
But
gotta-
didn't I hear that we're gonna be looking for more debt coming up here pretty soon?
Yeah, I think that's the slide after this one. You'll
So,
see.
but I have, so this is kind of a preview of what I consider to be good news. Based on this preview, it doesn't look like we need to, we were planning well, I was planning, we had in last year's budget, we were considering issuing debt in 18-19. According to this, it doesn't look like we need to. So I think that's good news.
And that's awesome news.
So looking at this is the reserve projection for the next 5 years with no debt. So we're not issuing debt. We kept our debt service coverage ratio above the 115% of the 176 all the way down to 122. So even the 5 years out, we're still pretty good. The sort of bad news is typically when you, in speaking with rating agencies, they look, when they give through your rating, they do medians. So they look at the median AA rating for your industry. And right now the median AA rating is about 527 days in cash for our industry. The median debt service coverage ratio is somewhere around 1.8 to 2.0. So looking at this, we're well under both of those ratings. So, but that's not all the factors that are considered in giving that rating, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't have got the AA plus in the first place. The structure of your debt's one thing, the health of your reserves is another, so they have a lot of factors that they take into consideration in doing that. So sort of the bad news here is that our days in cash gets down to 212 days, which is below where we'd really like it to be in order to meet our rating requirements, or what we consider to be where our rating is now. So putting this together, and again, it's a 5-year plan, so a lot can happen in 5 years, but this is what we have in our long-range plan. All right, so the next slide.
Well, plus I guess the difference in a rating between, we're AA now,
AA plus.
AA plus, and a AA. What would the difference be? If we had to go out and borrow money?
It would be just even stronger in those factors. So basically, when they look at all those factors, they would say, and there's not, based on the reports that I saw, there isn't a AA plus median. There's a AA median and a AAA median, and so on and so forth.
Are you asking what the difference in interest rate would be?
Yeah.
If you let your rating slip, how much more are you paying for debt?
If it went from a AA plus to a AA.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question, but it's not one that I can answer right now.
Okay. But, just curious as to what,
Is it a half a
at
percent?
what
Is it a
cost,
1%?
at what cost do you
Right.
weigh that out at?
What does it cost you to retain your AA plus?
Yeah, and is it necessary to hold it, because a lot of agencies only have AA, and some have AAA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would think there wouldn't, and this is just my opinion, I would think there isn't much of a difference between a AA plus, and even a AAA. I would think it's really from AA to AAA is where you make a big jump. Because if you're going out for, you're investing in things, you see a AAA, you think, okay, it's AAA, it's going to be a lot, so it'd be cheaper to
Right.
issue debt at that rating. I'm not sure if there's a lot of difference between AA and AA plus.
Okay.
But then again, we're using the median ratings for a AA, not a AA plus.
Right.
So we're looking at that and saying that they're at 527 and like 2.0 on their median ratings, and we're going to be at 122 and 212 in 2023. So we just want to we're constantly keeping our eye on that to make sure that we're being prudent in our financial
And
plan.
where does our PERS liability fall in there?
So PERS is actually built in here through the operating transfers. So if you look at the first line there under revenues, operating transfers. So that's when you have your revenues, your operating revenues are higher than your expenses, any excess, as you know, gets transferred to your replacement reserves, and it comes in through there. The higher PERS gets, the less we're able to transfer to our reserves.
Right.
It costs that way. So
Right.
that's how it's paid for by the ratepayers.
But, and that shows the payment we're gonna make that year.
That shows the amount that we have excess over our expenses that year for planned project costs and other expenses.
Which
And
payment
debt
were you
service.
referring to,
I'm
debt
talking
service or
about
PERS?
the $10 million that we're in arrears right now, according to PERS, is it 8, 10?
14.
No, it's like 15.
15 million dollars we're in arrears.
15.2.
Where does that show up on all these balance sheets? Where does it show up as us owing PERS as a debt?
Okay, actually, it
Yes.
doesn't, in the budget, it doesn't show up. It will be in our audited financial statements under net pension liability. We record it there per GASB 68, and there's about 10 pages of notes that show the detail to how that was calculated and everything that's inside of our net pension liability. So if you have, they're available online, I can get you a copy if you'd
No,
like.
I don't need to know what it is, because it wouldn't make sense to know what it was. But what I want to know is, it doesn't really show anywhere here.
Because here we just budget for the expenses. It's shown in the salaries and benefits, so you show where the expense will be and that we're planning for it. The total liability is actually on our balance sheet, which is a part of our financial statements,
Okay.
but it's in there.
So PERS says we owe them like 15.2 million for the unfunded accrued liability, but they're spreading that over a 20-year term. So on an annual basis, that amortized payment for that 15.2 will show up in each fiscal year, which will get reflected in how much money is left over for operating transfers.
So that's already in here.
It's in there.
It's right
Annual
here.
payment.
So on page 25,
Yep.
under benefits, it's the first line. So you see public employment retirement,
Right?
that's the cost. So the budget for 18-19 is $2.1 million. And that includes our normal cost and our UAL payment. So the total together. Now in the future, in 2019, that's gonna go up as a result of that 20-year amortization and the increase in the normal cost. So it'll be somewhere around $2.7 million next year.
Is there a way, out of curiosity, maybe for the next meeting, not for this budget obviously, but for you or Michael with all his numbers, to show if you paid off that $15 million?
So we've had extensive conversations with the GM
Oh,
on this.
already?
Yeah.
And we've actually looked at a lot of scenarios as far as if we were to pay down debt versus paying down PERS, how much we'd save using our reserves. We did several scenarios, but paying down PERS is one of those considerations. So
Okay.
getting that.
So that's after the budget, so we'll look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're in the process of having staff meetings to get a PERS workshop with the board to explain these things. So, but it doesn't need to be done in conjunction with this year's budget.
No, this year, but it should be done as soon as possible, because there's a big savings to be
We want to
had.
do it in advance of next year's budget, because that's when we're starting to see the changes that are coming about as part of PERS, so we want to do it for the next year.
And that's why I think you said you're gonna try to get somebody from PERS, but I don't know. if
Yeah,
they
they couldn't get down here because they're busy putting together the actuarial reports, but I'm still trying.
Yeah.
But,
No benefit to them.
yeah.
They feel they're gonna be skewered when they get here.
Yeah, they don't want to leave the bubble from Sacramento.
So, looking at this and considering the median factors for the debt service coverage and the days in cash, we actually, in the budget that you have there, you'll see in the middle of the page, and I wish I had circled it right now because it's awful small, but you see the line for debt proceeds.
Yep.
So in 2021, the year that we actually have the major expenses for the parallel outfall, it's like $6 million. We are budgeting or including in the 5-year projection about, for those 2 years, it's $13 million of debt in order to maintain our reserve levels above an acceptable rate that'll give us the debt service coverage ratio we need and the days in cash in order to meet what will probably be a median AA rating. So
Okay.
looking at the bottom ratings now, you can see that it goes, now we're well over the debt, we're still over debt service coverage ratio at 120, and we have the days in cash of over 300, which is considered a good place to be.
Okay.
So that's the purpose of that, was just to show.
But
that-
as you're
that
looking at
debt.
it right now, we may not have to add any more debt.
Right, this is out to 2021,
Right,
so.
as we're looking at it right now.
Well,
So-
for this year,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, there was no debt included in this year's budget.
or next year's,
Right.
per this chart. So you'll see there's nothing in 1819 and 1920, but in 2021, that's when we're starting to see debt.
So in 2021,
That $7.5 million you see is because we're issuing debt. And you'll see there's a corresponding jump in our debt service payment in the next year. It goes from 5.47 million to 6.5.
we're moving at the end of every year, we're moving $6 million of our funds into reserve. Right?
Well, whatever's budgeted. for
Yeah.
that year.
Yes. Well, we've been doing about $6 million
Yeah.
every year. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it could change, it's just what we have in the 5-year plan, and again, not being approved or.
Sure, it's just, yeah, just
It's a plan.
We just wanna make sure,
Forecast.
we wanna make sure. our
sounds
plan-
cool.
And that, I believe, is all I have for today. Let me make sure. Oh, no, I don't. Let's go on to the budget calendar. So, the next steps in the process, we're actually gonna have the full board workshop on the 21st, and that'll be after we've gone over the budget, revised and refined it, if any changes need to be made, if you haven't-
21st.
May 21st?
Oh, May 21st.
Yeah, it's a full board workshop in advance of the.
Yes, yeah.
What day, is that a Monday?
Monday,
Okay.
in advance of the 30th, which we're
Budget
planning
adoption.
on adopting the budget on the
Correct.
30th.
And that's everything that's up there, and that's the plan. So, with that, I'll see you May 21st.
Great job.
We have I wrote down like 4 questions, look like you guys are busy writing, so we'll come prepared to address
Yeah,
those.
mine are kind of all over the place, so I'll have to take a fuller copy.
I'll get it to you guys tomorrow and
Perfect.
Well, thank you very much for having all this. It's just,
Fitch rating report.
yeah, we'll go on with that. So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.